You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, September 25th. The 49ers played on Thursday. They won a game on Thursday, and we all got to enjoy our weekends watching the Cowboys lose, and now it's our third victory Monday in a row. How great is that? Joining me to talk about the top 49ers performances from the game on Thursday is Weston, as always on a Monday. How you doing today, Weston?
Steph, I'm great. You just third victory Monday. The weather's a little gloomy here in the Garden State, but other than that, what's better than enjoying an entire stress-free Sunday full of football, watching some of your rivals choke away a game. I mean, I could think of far worse things for sure. I joked with you. I'm just going to enjoy Monday. I'm going to sip my vino, and we're going to have some fun here this evening.
I'm feeling like Stephen A today, just chuckling, just laughing at the Cowboys' misfortunes. But, we talked about how the Cowboys lost and after them looking dominant week 1 and 2. And now the 49ers are pretty much just one of just 3 teams that are undefeated still after week 3. At the time of us recording this, we still don't know if the third team is going to be Tampa or Philly because they're both 2-0 going into this game Monday night. Well, tonight, Monday Night Football. I will say this, though. Of the remaining undefeated teams, I think that you could make a case that the 49ers have looked better than any of them.
Yeah, more consistent, that's for sure, right? I mean,
maybe that's a better word, because I am aware that the Dolphins did put up 70 points on the Broncos. I mean, I live in Colorado. There was basically a funeral for the team today, but I mean, yeah, I think if you look at just full body of work, yeah, the 49ers seem to be the most consistent of any team right now.
I mean, listen, they make everybody who struggles with math look real good because it's been 30, 30, 30. You don't have to average anything out. It's hard to be more consistent than that. And we'll talk about it, but a second game in a row where it certainly wasn't perfect. It wasn't always pretty, but they still found a way to do it rather convincingly against a former playoff team from a year ago. So all is right with the world right now.
Yeah, it certainly is. So, I mean, yeah, you're talking about the 49ers. The Dolphins 49ers. Dolphins have an average scoring margin of 19.7. Of course, skewed by, their win yesterday by 50. And the 49ers average scoring margin is plus 16 points. The 49ers have played the Steelers, the Rams, and the Giants, and the Dolphins have played the Chargers, the Patriots, and the Broncos. So, a good share of, pretty bad teams sure. On both sides. But you know what? I frankly don't care if the Dolphins look like the best team in the AFC. That's fine. It's week 3. I'm not concerned about the AFC until playoffs come around. What I do know right now through 3 weeks is the 49ers are the best team in the NFC. And I think that I can definitely say at this point in the season. And I haven't even seen Philadelphia play tonight yet. I don't even think I need to in order to make that statement. But through these first 3 weeks, I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC, and that feels great.
Yeah, I think they're just doing it in all 3 phases, right? And that makes the team real hard to beat. They're finding a way, like we talked about, 30 points. That's nothing per game. That's nothing to sneeze at. They're doing it in the air. They're doing it on the ground. Special teams is outside of a little shaky start against Pittsburgh with our kickoff coverage. We made that swap. Now the ball doesn't even come out of the end zone, right? It's a touchback every single time. Punt coverage has been great. Wisnowski's pinning him back when he's punting in those scenarios. Defense, right? As you just mentioned, average margin of victory, 16 points across the 3 games. Defenses clearly has something to do with that. So they keep this going. It's going to be hard to argue against that they are the best team in the NFC.
So let's talk about the game on Thursday, right? Because it seems like it was a while away, but I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you about it. So like, and you said, it was kind of a slow start for them or a shaky start in that game. But I think what was most impressive for me through these 3 weeks, I think we've seen this team adapt to the situation, adapt to their opponents, and be able to win in a variety of different ways if they need to. And I think that's that's a sign of a really great team and a team that I think could be dangerous for the rest of the NFL and this division and conference.
Yeah, I mean, they're chameleon-esque, right? Like, it's almost like I noticed something a little bit different, and it's probably because they're losing the coin toss. I know Kyle is in favor of kicking and receiving in the second half, but the last 2
Yeah.
games, we've actually received first, and a tone has been set really early on those opening drives, right? I mean, if I look 15-play drive, yeah, we only walked away with 3 points, but you can only imagine the physicality that's taking place in those 15 plays, and it feels almost like in the first half, they're letting the game come to them.
Yes.
And then the second half is when you start to see the separation on both sides of the ball. So you're seeing adjustments take place offensively and defensively. In this game, the separation started to happen a little bit more like midway through the second quarter versus the second half like it did with the Rams. But that bodes really well for your future aspirations when a game, whether it gets muddy and it's bogged down, it's a running game or a high flying, high action, airing the ball out. Like, it just feels like this team's equipped for the challenge. And I say that conservatively because I never want to get my hopes too high, but as somebody who's been watching this team for 36 years, I haven't seen many 3-0 starts for the team doing it the way that they've done it. And it's exciting. Like, I'm trying to hold back my excitement and temper my expectations, but it's been a lot of fun so far.
And I would almost argue, like, everyone's like, the 49ers aren't starting slow, they're starting hot. And yeah, like, they've won 3 games to start the season, but I think you can also argue that they're still figuring some things out.
No
Like,
doubt.
this is kind of a slow start for them. You look at the games and you kind of see that they are leaving some points on the board. So they're beating teams by a pretty, wide margin. They're scoring 30 points a game, and yet, like, there's still room for improvement for this team. And I think, like, that's the most exciting thing about these first 3 games, and just the ability, as we mentioned, to be able to win in a lot of different ways. And I've noticed the same thing, that they are letting the games kind of come to them. It's almost like they want to scope out the opponents early in the game. Let's just see what they do, and then we will respond with our adjustments. And at an extent, like, they are good enough where they can do that. Like, they can just kind of wait and see what's going to happen. But also, like, I think that partially has something to do with it being early in the season, because you don't have a lot of tape on teams this year, right?
Yep.
This early in the season. So it's kind of limited on what for sure is going to happen or what you're going to see. So you do kind of have to slow play these games to just kind of figure it out. But on both sides of the ball, I've been really impressed with the adjustments that, Kyle and even Steve Wilkes has made in order to, come out on top at the second halves. And another thing is, like, you mentioned it, like, they usually do like to get the ball after the half, and they like to score right before the half too. But I think right now, since they aren't getting in the last 2 games, they haven't been getting the ball after the half, it makes scoring before then even more important. Think about how they were tied with the Rams going into halftime. Like, scoring right there was so important because it made the game 0-0 for the second half. It was pretty much just a clean slate, and they made the adjustments, to win that. And then, against the Giants too, I believe if I'm not mistaken, the Giants did score like before the half or something like that. Let me see.
Yeah,
I'll
they
look
kicked the
back at my
field
notes,
goal.
but
Yeah, they kicked the field
so
goal right
it
before
was
that.
okay. They scored after. They scored in the third quarter, but Yeah, so I mean, they're just doing it different ways, and I think they're becoming comfortable in winning a variety of different ways. So it's
Yeah,
been impressive.
I think you hit the nail right on the head earlier about they're still figuring things out, right? Like, and you could argue they're starting slow. If you look at the tape from that magnificent 10-game stretch and run that they went on, it feels like the offense is still a little bit sluggish. I would argue the defense picked up right where they left off, right? Like just being absolutely dominant in the second half of football games. But it bodes really well when, oftentimes when you think about like how to beat a team, right? Like when you talk about like how to beat Patrick Mahomes, keep the offense off the field, right? The Niners just don't feel like it's like, okay, well, our defense scores points too, and they do things and put you in unfavorable downs and distances and situations. So it's just the recipe is not as easy as you want it to be. And here's another reason why I think they're sluggish or starting a little bit is, the defensive coaches and players get paid too, just like the offensive players do. Every game is more tape on Brock, right? And you're going to find something that hasn't been done yet. And God, did Wink Martindale and the Giants really try to do that? I mean, they
They
blitzed
tried.
85% of dropbacks, literally set
Insane.
an NFL record. And for the most, at least as long as that stat has been
Yeah,
kept
in the last 10 years, yeah, at least.
and I, statistically speaking, it says Brock handled it well, right? Like if you just looked at the stat line, you're like, gosh, he did well. I would say there's still area for improvement there. But now this is better tape that you want out there. It's like, well, Jesus, if we try to rush forward, that guy might pick us apart. But if we bring the house, he's just going to hot read us all day. And that means Debo's getting the ball in space. That means McCaffrey's getting the ball in space. And gosh, that's a problem because they're two very difficult individuals to get to the ground, evidenced by what we saw on Thursday night.
And so that's the point, right? Like you can throw anything at them, and maybe like Brock Purdy in particular, and they're gonna find a way to adjust and be successful. Just working around that. And yeah, I mean that's I think what has taken the ceiling for this team to another level. And as someone mentioned earlier in the chat, Purdy's floor is looking pretty high right now.
Yeah.
Certainly higher than, I think Jimmy Garoppolo's. I mean, I don't think we can really argue that at this point. Yeah, just really impressive and really exciting because I know that with such a young quarterback and just the type of guy that he is, he's only going to get better and, smarter. So I just see this improving for the team over time. I mean, we're in week 3 of this season. Brock Purdy's in his, what is it, like the 8th game that he started and finished.
Yeah.
So it's freaking insane what he's been able to do in such a short amount of time. But like with that, I mean, let's start talking about some of the best performances of the week for these players. And for those of you who are watching and aren't really familiar, so this segment, what me and Weston do, we talk about the best 49er performances from the previous game, and we pretty much vote on who had the best performance, and that would be our 49K player of the week. If there's a lot of players who had good games, we'll also have a 25K and a 15K player of the week. Honorable mentions. But yeah, I mean, let's just mention some of our candidates here, and I'll let you start, Weston. Who do you think?
I'm only going to go one, right? We'll do every other because I think there's obvious for anybody watching games, some obvious ones. I'm going to take the lowest hanging fruit possible. Deebo Samuel. 6 catches, $129, scored the touchdown, had that 140-yard monstrosity where he just owned what's the term the kids use? Sunned every person that he encountered before he was wrapped up from behind.
Yeah.
He only had the 1 carry. And think about this for a second, Steph, with this production. 6 for 129. He also had 12 targets, right? So like arguably his best receiving performance to date in 2023, the 2023 season. But something I've heard you talk about, I've seen you post about, that I feel that most people feel is like when things seem to be like slowing down or maybe going in the wrong direction, doesn't 19 just seem to cure those woes? Like his brand of physical, it concerns me. It concerns me because he plays so physical that like nobody holds up under that. I wish he'd get out of bounds every once in a while. I wish he'd just do the Marvin Harrison, just catch it and go, right? Like and get down to the ground. Do we really need the extra 2 yards? But it ignites people. It sparks people. Like, especially with Ayuk's absence, for that receiver group, like it's hard to not just rally behind that. The statistics back it up, but it's the moments in the game when that big play comes. I'm drawing a blank exactly as to when that one catch and run went, where he just made every single person miss, and not just like miss, like juked them out. Like I just ran you over.
Yeah.
I just literally ran.
They were there. They were in position.
And it doesn't matter, right? Like how scary is that? Like what's more frustrating for a defensive player? You did everything right. You handled your assignment, and your morals, your will was just literally removed from your body by 19. He's just a tone setter. He's a difference maker, and he had himself his best performance of the season so far.
Yeah, that's demoralizing, doing everything you possibly could to stop a guy and he still trucks you. And I would argue that this is 2021 Debo that we're seeing, right? Not so much in the stats, because they don't need him to be that guy. He's not getting that same volume, but in the way that he can lift this team with his physicality. And you've been mentioning that, I've mentioned it. He can single-handedly like flip the momentum towards the 49ers' favor with just a single play if he wants to. And that's what he did on that play on Thursday. And he just fights for every yard. And I think it's like admirable, because I think your teammates see that and that pumps them up too. Like that makes them want to play a little bit harder as well. Like I know that Christian McCaffrey was like a tough guy as well, but like I feel like he's gotten some extra juice too since getting on this 49ers team, because I think everyone on this team plays that same brand of football, where you are going to put your hand out and you are going to try to stiff arm someone, get those extra yards. Kind of the same thing on defense. Like I think guys like Fred Warner and Bosa, like they kind of set the tone too for this is the brand of football that we play on this side of the ball, and everyone else just kind of falls in line and does that too. Everyone knows. And yeah, he was targeted a bunch, and that was because Ayuk was out, right? Let's keep that in mind in this game. Ayuk wasn't even out there.
Yep.
And Debo caught 6 passes. 5 of those went for a first down, 129 yards. 78 of those yards were after the catch. And according to PFF, he forced 6 missed tackles. That was probably all on that one play. If we're being honest, I mean, probably. So yeah, Debo's incredible, and I'm glad that we have him at that like 2021 form where he could put the team on his back, because at like on that game on Thursday and even the week before against the Rams, like that's what the team needed to just lift them up.
Here's my favorite part of this. You and I have been watching the sport for a long time. What tends to more often than not happen to wide receivers after they cash in and get the bag? They start thinking about longevity, conservation of body, getting another bag 4 or 5 years from now. How long can I play in this league? I got a lot of those vibes last year. I get none of those vibes this year right now from Debo. Like it's just now to me, when I watch him play, I see the dog that I saw in 2021, especially 2021. And I see a guy who is now a veteran in this league and a vet on this team who wants to go win the ship. Like I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I'm behind it. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick says he likes your hat. It's a dope hat.
No comments on the Prime.
Oh, I do like that. I still rock with Prime. I know he got beat out this weekend, but we still rock with Prime around here.
They were never going to be in that game. That was just
right. And wait until this weekend, because USC is going to do something ugly to them. But we're still rocking with Prime.
Always.
But okay, I'm gonna go to the defensive side of the ball for this one, and this one may surprise you, maybe. I'm gonna go with Javon Kinlaw, and the reason that I want to say Javon Kinlaw is because like I think he is outperforming the expectations put on him going into this year. Like I don't even really think we had expectations going for Kinlaw entering this season.
I didn't think he'd be on the team at this point.
Right. Like I think we've been burned so many times before being hopeful of what Kinlaw was going to do, every year, that I think going into this one, we were just like, all right, it's his final year, like whatever. Anything he can give you is a bonus. All right. If he's going to be in a reduced role, whatever he can do, fine. And yeah, like he so far has been in a reduced role, not dependent as much as he was in previous seasons. On Thursday, he played just 19 snaps, but what he was able to do in those 19 snaps, I think really changed the game for the 49ers on defense. He was in there majority on passing downs, and they put him out there as a fifth defensive lineman. So I do actually like that from Steve Wilks too, how they were able to do that. I almost felt like, in part, yes, it was an extra guy to rush the passer, but I also think it was an extra guy to plug any of those rushing lanes, because you don't want Daniel Jones to like see an opening and, run out and gain a first down or whatever. So I thought that was a smart game plan from Steve Wilks and the 49ers. But yeah, what Kinlaw was able to do with it was incredible. He locked 4 pressures, 4 hurries, and again, on just 19 snaps. So it's still early in the season, I know, but so far, he's having the most production I think we've ever seen him have in his
100%.
career. So this is crazy. And again, at this point, it's just a bonus. It's just a huge plus for this defense. And I'm excited to see more. And I'm happy for him.
I love this nomination by you, Steph. I love it so much, because if you didn't watch this game and you just went and looked at the traditional stats that like ESPN or NFL.com might have in their box score, you might say, did Javon Kinlaw even play? But that's the nature of his position, right? That D tackle spot. But he ate up double teams in the run game, clogged holes. He gets pressure. You mentioned being out there for 19 snaps, almost downplaying, but the truth is the Giants only had 46 offensive plays, right? So reality, that's just a hair under 50% of the defensive snaps. So he's getting burned. He's in the rotation. He looks healthier and stronger than he ever has. And that's that is his role. And he so far through three weeks is filling the role that they really honestly envisioned for him, I think, right out of the gate. Like there was nothing about Javon Kinlaw that was going to say, this guy's Javon Hargrave, who's going to get me double-digit sacks on the interior of the defensive line. It was, we need to tighten up against the run. We need you to, like I said, fill gaps. The more pressure you create, the better. That's an added bonus. But yeah, 99's been playing. If I had wood near me, I'd knock on it and say, hey, let's keep this going, because the more performance we're getting out of.
Actually, I got this little.
There we go. Knock on that. We need it. Like it's all. My good luck. It's all like it's a feather in the cap, right? Like it's unexpected, it's unanticipated, and that just adds to the dynamic of the team. Steph, I love it. I love this nomination so much. I'm
glad. And yeah, like I think also because like the defensive line was already very good. And like we talk about how you can't really double team guys on this line. And if you do, it's at your own expense, because someone else is just going to make a play. And I think what we're seeing from Kinlaw is he's capable of making a play too, if you don't account for him through these first 3 weeks. So happy for him. But who's your next nomination here?
I'm going to stay on the defensive side. I'm going to say Oren Burks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always got one doozy for you, right? So you always got to hear. You always got to hear
throw
me
a
out a little bit.
All right.
So I would challenge,
I
would challenge anybody to go back and listen to the broadcasts of week 1 and week 2. Never once was there a mention of our third linebacker ever. It was always Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. And we didn't last year. We've grown accustomed to the play of Azeez Al-Shaair, right? Like, and how he could have arguably been interchangeable with Greenlaw. And when Greenlaw was hurt, he was, right? And stepped right into that 2 spot. We know what we signed Oren for. He was the special teams ace. But I saw a guy who was flashing around the field. He tied for the league, the team lead in tackles with a couple other people. He had a couple tackles for a loss that were in opportune spots. But to me, it was just the mention of like, oh, we actually have a third linebacker that's out on the field right now. We haven't seen that in weeks. And again, you like we're talking about with Kinlaw. Yeah. If you're getting positive, impactful play from somebody that even the most novice fan is probably forgetting from time to time, that is the third string linebacker, right? That is your LB3 essentially, who doesn't see the field as much because you're going to play a lot of nickel in the Steve Wilkes defense. But when he's out there, he's making an impact, and it's starting to, and I think this is going to bud well for his confidence. I mean, the dude flies all over the field, right? Like he fits the breed of what we're trying to do. He is quick. He gets sideline to sideline. And to me, that showed. So I know he's not going to win 49K player of the week, but this is in the same vein as my Jawan Jennings nomination last week is Oren. I recognize you, sir. Thank you for your service. Keep it up, man, because that's going to bode really well for this defense.
I mean, no, I think it's great because if anything, like this show isn't just to vote for 49K player of the week, but as I mentioned, like there's honorable mentions and there's guys who you want to give your flowers to for a great performance. And I do think Oren Burks definitely fits under that category. And I guess like that was kind of a new wrinkle for Steve Wilkes too, right? Because like I think we've in the past, D'Amico Ryan's always had the 3 linebackers out there. Through the first 2 weeks of the season, it was barely anything, and they were in nickel packages like all the time. So changed it up a little bit this time. I should look at the all 22 to see like when he was out there because let's see, Oren Burks played 21 snaps, so he wasn't out there like the full time either. And I know Isaiah Oliver was also out there quite a bit, so obviously interchanged those two, and so it was situational. But what he was able to do in that time, I think, was impressive because, again, like he's probably one of those players you're not really expecting him to do a whole lot or hear his name mentioned. It's Oren Burks. He's the third linebacker. So, like, when you do hear his name mentioned and he's out there making plays, that's a bonus, like that's a lift for the defense, getting a little extra from some guys. And PFF had him with 4 tackles, 4 stops. He was targeted 5 times and just allowed 13 yards on 4 catches. So pretty impressive day from him. And yeah, I mean, I think on defense he did what he needed to do to help this team win. And so credit for Steve Wilkes putting him out there in those situationally. Obviously it worked, kind of like similar to how we saw Kinlaw. So yeah, I like this one. It's thinking out of the box.
I try to do it once for you. Here's the thing for me, right? Like is if you think about the team defensively, let's just go through the 3 layers. If you can take Bosa out of the game, if you can try your best to eliminate the impact that Fred Warner has, or Hufanga, or Mooney Ward, doesn't it really bode well when people like Kinlaw have a solid performance or Oren Burks have a solid performance? You can't take them all away. It's just that simple. And that's how the best defenses become the best defenses in the league, is they have supplemental players that are eventually going to go get signed to big contracts and start on other teams, but they're filling roles here. Like that's a fantastic spot to be in.
Yeah. I mean, like if you have 10 guys on your defense who are stars who can make the play, that's great. But you know what's going to happen when you face a really good team? They're going to target the 2 players who are not your stars, who are not great. So I think like right now we're seeing some guys who I think are stepping up, and we're seeing like all 12 guys in these last 2 weeks like be capable of making the plays, and that's going to make it tougher for your opponents to find any daylight. So I'm in support of what they're doing. Technic Chic asks, do you think Kinlaw and the true D lineman 5-man fronts get a little more run based on how Kinlaw and that scheme did last game? I would not be surprised. I mean, I do feel like it was kind of situational because of what Daniel Jones, like the threat of Daniel Jones running and wanting to like give more pressure because he's terrible under pressure. Like I think all of that did play into that decision, but it was successful. So like I think we'll probably see it again for sure.
I've 1000% agree with you, Steph, that it was purely situational. I don't think there's anything about the passing game from the Giants that kept Steve Wilks up at
Yeah.
night, right? So I'm just being honest with you. Like
No, I
nothing,
mean,
I think,
you're right.
did they ever feel threatened or outmatched or outmanned in any capacity. So why not? I mean, I had mentioned in my like what to look for show prior to like the game was like Daniel Jones is the ultimate equalizer here, right? His legs, and we struggle against mobile quarterbacks. So why not have? I suggested, are they going to use a spy a la an Oren Burks who can just fly around and not have much responsibility and accountability? He went with a fifth 5-down lineman in front, and it worked. It worked well, but I would expect to see it again. But it's going to be situational based. It's not going to be the norm go forward for sure.
If anything, like I don't know if it's just, it might be too early to say because we're only 3 weeks into the season and I don't know what Steve Wilks has done specifically like him or I mean, I feel like there's a lot more chess playing here with like what he's doing on defense. He I I don't know. I feel like he's he's showing a lot of different things that we hadn't necessarily seen before with this defense. And so far, like the adjustments that he's made so far is working. And I mean, you could say it's because of like the personnel they have. Maybe it's slightly better than it was last year, maybe. Um, but I don't know. I feel like we're seeing some wrinkles that have have been successful so far that I'm intrigued.
Me too. I've listened. Don't put it all on tape early in the season because you got some opponents coming down that you want to surprise them with.
Maybe even the Cardinals, man. They shit. Are
We'll
they
talk
are they
about
better than yeah, like
Yeah,
are
we'll
they
talk
better
about that.
than we thought they'd be?
Yeah, they
All
are.
right. All right, for my next nominee for 49K player of the week, I'm going to go back to a guy we were talking earlier, right? I mean, go back to the offense and it's going to be Brock Purdy because
BP.
what he did on Thursday, I think was incredible based on the situation that the Giants put him in, right? He was 20 of 31, 247 yards and 2 touchdowns against the blitz. Like that's an admirable stat line. Just any time probably. You could have a good day on that. But just against the blitz, and we saw how often the Giants were doing it. I think that was a very impressive performance from Brock Purdy, and maybe it was even more impressive because he started the game very unimpressive and he was able to turn it around and flip the Giants plan on its head. And I think the fact that he was able to do that in game, like the thing that strikes me the most about Purdy is like we've seen him have these like not his best games. Like I remember the one against the Raiders last season. He started slow in that one too. But he can turn it around on a dime. Like and that's the cool thing about him is I don't think like the previous play really affects him. He has short memory when it comes to his own mistakes and he can go out there and he can, execute still at a high level and find his rhythm and find his game. You don't need to wait too long. And so I was watching, the first quarter or whatnot of this game, and I'm thinking, man, is this guy turning into a pumpkin like right before our eyes? Is he turning into Jimmy Garoppolo? Like, I don't want
last night.
I don't yeah. I don't want to see that. And I saw a lot of people like myself who live tweet games and who said some things that after within hours we regretted it or it just wasn't true by the end of the game because again he was able to flip the script so quickly in this game to turn it around and it actually ended up being maybe one of his better performances by the end of the game. So I really like that about Brock, that he can learn on the fly, and he's doing it very quickly. And I think also it's a testament to how much Kyle Shanahan trusts him. He threw the ball like was it 37 times in this game?
Yeah.
On a day where he was getting, blitzed out the ass. So I think that tells you right there that Kyle trusts him to, continue to put him out there to throw and execute. And I think he has all the reason to trust Purdy as well. His off games, I think, are better than some quarterbacks who won't be named. Some quarterbacks' best games, like
100%.
and that's really impressive for what I'm seeing from him.
I think it's really easy to just watch the beginning of this game and poo-poo Brock, right? Like,
Yeah,
like he made some errant throws, but I'm going to be as honest as I've ever been around Brock Purdy, even in my own household where my wife tells me I'm not allowed to root for Brock Purdy because I was such a Trey Lance guy, is besides like maybe Justin Herbert's and Tua Tagovailoa's performance yesterday, show me perfection at the quarterback position so far in 2023. You haven't seen it. Even from the biggest of names, from the biggest of stars, you haven't seen it. What is so impressive about Brock, or at least what impresses me at this point in time, is he is just unfazed. Like when that throw that he made where Kittle had to like literally play defense, and you saw Kittle put the straps on, like joking with the DB, which was hilarious, by the way. But that being said, like no coach had to get on him. He knew, like you got to the sideline. He is aware, like he's just aware. He's learning in the moment. And that becomes really easy when the moment just doesn't seem too big, And I think people like believe in him. I'd have to look at this statistically. I have no idea, but I have to imagine in his time here, 37 pass attempts is the most that he's had in a single game.
Yeah.
I can't recall a game.
Tied with his game against Miami last season.
Yeah.
Which was his first game
ever, which is like wild if you think about that. But in all sincerity, like the body of work for the game was outstanding. Like I know it didn't start well, but to me, the not starting well and finishing the way that he finished speaks volumes of the individual, because that could have came off the rails real fast. And not just from Brock. We've seen Kyle do this before. You're not throwing the ball anymore. We're just going to hand off the ball 50 times today because we have the stable behind us.
Put him on timeout.
Yeah. But even Kyle like has this trust in him, and like I'm just gonna take a guess here and say that Kyle Shanahan knows a little bit more about football than I do, right? So at the end of the day, like I gotta have some faith in that as well. And it's just, I don't know. I just find like every week he does something a little bit different that's not in the stat column. To me, that's just like, okay, I'm not calling him a Hall of Famer or the truth, but like I'm buying into this. And you and I joked about it week one. Like, isn't it really cool? Like when your quarterback drops back and you're not just like, where's this ball going? Like there's just a little confidence around what he's now. I do tend to think that Brock has a little of the luck of the Irish, right? When it comes to certain things, i.e. like Ronnie Bell's second catch of the game, like when that happens. But here's what I do know about luck. It favors the prepared and it favors the good. Always, right?
Like
and that's what I'm gonna say about Brock. He is prepared for the game, and when he sees something he hasn't and maybe it didn't go well, like it gets corrected. And it gets corrected. Like I've never really seen him in the same game make the same mistake twice. Like I think we have I hesitate to say this, but this is like a really big deal for the 49ers right now to have competent quarterback play when you think about and I don't for a second buy into well, look at the team he has around him. I don't care. I've seen bad, you know what I mean? Like if you're a bad quarterback, I don't care what the team is around you. The ball touches your hands every play first. Like I'm so trying to hold back my excitement around this, and it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, Peter King said, quote, "It seems there's a bunch of people who don't buy Brock Purdy and who await his failure. You'll be waiting for a while."
Yeah.
End quote. That's also a bar, by the way. But
yeah, and screw you, Florio. Purdy, turdy,
Yeah,
everything you want to say. Like, get
what
lost,
kind of
bro.
analysis is that? Like
That guy gets
that,
paid for a living. You know that, right, Steph?
hard to
It's on
believe.
Sunday Night Football.
Like that's something I would say like as a joke with my friends over like a drink, like
Yep.
like oh funny name, but like he literally said that out loud like
Yeah.
in the show
With
and
Peter King.
was dead serious about
know.
it. He was dead serious.
I
Like
know.
what are we doing here?
I'm sorry I even brought it up on your show. I apologize. But it's just like it's
Right, like,
ridiculous. Like
it's so crazy.
this is who people go to for like their news and like scouting report. I mean, hopefully less and less over time. But come here. Come to the 49 Carats podcast. You're going to learn more than you are going to listen to Mike Florio. I promise you that.
Whew, yeah, it's very
Sorry.
possible.
Passionate
No.
about it.
Oh, it was pretty bad. In fact, I'll probably make fun about it on Bully Ball tomorrow with Jay. But you have another vote
Yeah.
for someone?
I'm going to leave you. I'm going to let you wrap it up with another name that obviously should be involved in this equation. But you and I were joking about it prior to the show. I am hitching my wagon, apparently, to this rookie kicker, Mr. Jake Moody. Steph, here's a reality. The 49ers have scored 90 points as a team. He is responsible for 36 of those 90 points to date. So that is a consecutive 3-game run of a stat line of 3 made field goals, 3 extra points kicked. Do I want my kicker accounting for 12 points every single football game? Not really. You know what I mean? I'd love those to be like 5 or 6 extra points, right? Like versus making those field goals. But he's been Moody's been money. And they've looked good too, right? Like they're like, I mean, the preseason was so shaky. Like even when he made it, you're like, that's a fluke. You know what I mean? But like it's just been consistent down the line. Now look, we're in September. Good weather. For the most part at these games in a dome, let's be realistic about it. Let's see like what November and December brings to the equation. But, every single one of us was out on this pick, right? And like I just said, I mean, the dude accounts for more than 30, almost 40% of the points that we have scored through the first 3 weeks of the season.
I mean, it's hard to argue with that math, Weston. Like,
I don't do many things well. Math is my strong suit.
Okay, that's good because I'm terrible at it. But Jake Moody's good at kicking, so that's been great. And yeah, I mean, I think we're all kind of relieved, right? Because after the preseason, we were thinking this was going to be a disaster. I honestly think that Moody getting hurt and just not kicking for a bit was probably the best thing that could have happened to him. Because I think it got his like mind out of, I don't know, whatever was happening. And I remember Jennifer Lee Chan on the 49ers Talk podcast mentioned it too, that she spoke to him about it. And he said that in the preseason, none of those kicks were clean. Like I don't know if something up with the snap or like he never hit the ball clean on any of those. And you can kind of tell because like they were so off sometimes that it was like, what was that? And so now, like as you mentioned, they're down the middle, like they're okay, the 57-yarder was close to the edge there, but that's 57 yards. Like if it goes through the uprights, that's all you need. But I think he's in a groove clearly right now. And I'm not worried when he goes out there and makes a kick, or goes out for a kick. I think I know he's going to make it. So that it's good to have that type of trust in your kickers. Say what you want about kickers, but
they're people
for how many points he has, contributed to the 49ers right now through the first 3 games of the season. Hard to argue that, he deserves some recognition here. So.
Steph, I know we're getting to know each other the more shows that we do together here, but do you golf at all? Have you ever been?
I go to Topgolf.
All right, this works, right? Like it's still a game. It's still a competition, and you got to put the club on the ball. And you mentioned the time off. Like golf, to me, I liken to the kicking game. Mm-hmm. They all have the skill, right? Like they all have the talent. They all have everything. It's between the ears that matters. And maybe that time off, just like let them just like hone in on a little bit, like dude, relax. you're already in the league. You were picked in the 3rd round. You got a lot of guaranteed money, even if you never make a field goal in your career. Just chill out, and look, we're only 3 weeks in, but it's paying dividends so far.
Yeah, I think so too. So again, hopefully he doesn't have to make these many field goals in the future, because hopefully the 49ers, can punch it in a little more often. But hey, that's just me, being extra, I guess, picky and spoiled.
We're allowed to be greedy. We're fans.
Yeah. I mean, and they've scored 30 points in 3 straight games. Like, anything less than that is a disappointment. It's unacceptable.
That's the world that I live in right now. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. So, I have one last.
Yes. Bring us home.
Okay, so my last one, and it's a kind of, I guess you can say, an expected one, kind of. Nick Bosa. All right, let's just cut to the chase. It's Nick Bosa for me. And in this game, he had 6 pressures. He finally got his sack. All right, so we can stop having people complain about that. He had a quarterback hit and 4 hurries. And along with a lot of these guys on the defensive line, I really do think that everyone on the defensive line deserves some flowers for that effort. But he was putting in work, and he was flushing Daniel Jones out of the pocket. And, I think he's, even if the stats don't always show it, I think he's making a difference, a big one on that defensive line. So, but you guys finally got your sack that you were complaining about, begging for this whole time.
Well, you know what the new complaint is, right? Like, why doesn't the 2-point conversion sack count as a sack? And why wasn't that sack a safety? Because help me out.
I'll be sending a letter to the league.
Yeah. Trust me, we're already on. It's already drafted. We just gotta mail it out. But I agree a lot with this sentiment. So we've all. Listen, it's the 2nd week in a row, right? I don't. Me, I don't look at the PFF grades, but I'm pretty sure Bosa was the highest rated from a PFF grade on the 49ers defense this week. Am I off in that?
Yeah, I think so. So hasn't it been like the 2nd or 3rd week in a row he's done that? That's
what I'm saying. So we know the production is there, but when you pay a man $120 million in guaranteed money, you're like, I need to see how the average fan judges success, and that's in the stat column, right? And I'm with that. I put him on notice on your show, right? I wanted to see him get that sack, because it's like monkey off the back. Right now it's business as usual. I got home, I can get to the quarterback, etc. But you mentioned about the defense getting flowers. I'm going to go up and down. I'm not going to name players, but 8 total first downs, held them to 3 of 12 on 3rd down conversions, 150 total yards of offense allowed against the Giants, and 12 points. Now, I know they limped in and they were wounded, but it's also a Thursday night game. You don't know what to happen. And you can only play the teams that are on your schedule. And when a wounded team limps in, you treat them as such and you beat them down, right? And that's what this defense did. Bosa, a piece of it. You talked about Kinlaw, I talk about Burks. We could literally go through everyone, because I think everyone contributed to this performance.
Right.
But yeah, of course. Can I make an observation for our 49K player of the week here?
Sure.
We are spoiled, Steph.
I know. Every
we didn't even mention Christian McCaffrey. Dude had 100 plus all-purpose yards, got in the end zone, and we're just like, that was a down game. You know what I mean?
Terrible. we are very spoiled, because literally, first of all, we've won 3 games in a row. It starts the season, because I've been thinking man, this episode might be a little awkward when we don't win a game. Who deserves to be a 49K player of the week? But we haven't had to think about that yet, because 49ers are undefeated. And not just that, every single week we come in here and we have at least 5 guys that we've mentioned every single week. And quite frankly, we could probably name more, but we'd be here all night. So we are so spoiled. But I love it. I love it. We deserve it. We deserve this.
A top 15 player in the league, and we don't even bring him up until the end.
Right? It's
23, that was an off performance. We expect you didn't throw a touchdown. I can't mention you.
Can't respect that. All right. Did you have anyone else to nominate? All right, so we got our guys. Let me put our options, our nominees up here on the screen. And you guys are going to vote on the 49K player of the week for the Thursday night performance. Here are let's see, what slide is this on? Slide number 1, if it'll load. But I'll name them. It's Deebo Samuel. Here we go. Javon Kinlaw, Oren Burks, Brock Purdy, Jake Moody, and Nick Bosa. So we've got these guys as our candidates for the week based on their Thursday night performance. And just vote in the comments, people. Let us know who you think should be the 49K player of the week.
Yeah, this is an award for the people. We need the people to sound off on it.
For the people. And, Weston joked that I should send like a trophy or something at the end of the season to the player who wins for each week, right? Like, or maybe we'll have like one of the year, like whatever player won the most times, he's
49K MVP of 2023 season. Yeah.
And then we'll send him a trophy to 49 to Bartle Way. Listen, at the end of the year.
If Jake Moody wins for the year, I would bet my life that he would accept this reward and take a picture. And when you go on your TV show, Steph, and do the radio gig, like, it'll be talked about. I'm willing to bet that. It'll be talked about. I'm here for it. Can't wait.
I'm here for it too. So let us know. We got a couple votes already. Let us know who you want to vote for this week, who had the best performance in your opinion on Thursday. But Weston, while the people vote, we talk about the Cardinals. Like, are the Cardinals like kind of legit?
Have to talk
like,
about
should
them.
we be worried?
I know we like to put people on notice here. I'm putting this entire team on notice that, like, don't fall victim to, because you know who's not believing that they're the worst team in the NFL is the Arizona Cardinals. You know what I mean? Like, I know they're 1-2, but gosh, they played the Giants real tight and it took a miraculous comeback. Played Washington halfway decent early with a quarterback who had been there for like 4 days, right, to like start the season. This is a very dangerous game because it is a division rival. And it is a team that is literally playing with nothing to lose. They were already sold as like the guaranteed number 1 overall pick, you know, that they were tanking and all of that, but they have nothing to lose. Like I mean, Charlene, this is perfect, right? Like this could happen.
She said, Cardinals are the hurt dog who bites your hand off.
It's so true. Because here's the issue with this like 9 little 10-day break that we've had. You can't tell me they're not eyeing who's on the other side of that Cardinals game, right? Cowboys coming to town. It's right. I have that right? Cowboys, week 5. Cowboys, So Cowboys coming to town. Sometimes this happens where the install looks a little bit more like the second game coming up than the first game, depending upon that opponent. That is a grave mistake. It is a huge mistake against a division opponent. By the way, against a defensive coordinator who beat up on your team last year. Just saying. Do I think they win? I think they should. And I think they should handle their business. But if they fall asleep at the wheel, it's an issue. It's a huge issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say like the Cardinals are definitely better. They're playing better than I think anyone would have expected through these first 3 weeks. And it's not just that game against the Cowboys. If you watch any of the other games, they were putting in work. And, you know, really what it all comes down to is them at the end of the day aren't as talented as some of the other teams that they play. And so I think that as, you know, that's the reason that they didn't, you know, end up beating the Giants, or I forgot who they played in week 1. Washington. Yeah. So, you know, those teams came up towards the end, but the Cardinals had them, I think, where they wanted them early in that game. And I think what we saw against the Cowboys was a culmination of like everything that they were working towards before then. And they actually got it done. That's, to me, might be the only, okay, not the only saving grace, but that would be one of the pluses of what I think could happen is the Cardinals have been fighting so hard. They beat a really good team in the Cowboys, and they feel great about themselves, as they should. But maybe, maybe they forget
No.
they have the 49ers, or they have to go to Santa Clara to beat the 49ers as well, and it won't be enough to just play good enough. I mean, they have to play all 4 quarters against the 49ers too, and pretty much repeat that kind of performance. I don't know if that they're that good where they can do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing for me right now, that maybe they expended all of their energy into beating the Cowboy, or that's my hope, right? But I think you are going to see the Cardinals' best effort, and the 49ers have to be ready for it. If anything, I'm glad that they beat the Cowboy. Well, for more reasons than one.
For the obvious
Um,
reasons.
yeah, for the obvious reasons, of course. I'm glad they beat the Cowboys, but also because I think the 49ers have no excuse to not act like they didn't know that the Cardinals are going to give them their best effort.
Here's what I think a lot of people sometimes tend to forget. Not everybody, is that the NFL is very different than the NBA, than Major League, right? Like, we all have the same number of players. We all have to oblige by the same. That's why there's the saying on any given Sunday actually exists, right? We all operate within the same salary cap. Now, I know there's a difference in talent, but they all have the same ability. This isn't like, I'll say from the East Coast where I'm from, the New York Yankees going $150 million over payroll and just paying a luxury tax because they're making that in merch sales alone, right? Where like the Kansas City Royals can't do that, right? It's just, the NBA, like scouting these stars, like it's there's a little bit more equity in the NFL, right? Like in the sense of like these are NFL teams too. Like these guys, like there's not a huge difference in talent from one team to the other. It's about coaching. It's about those things. And what makes Arizona scary is they got to play team ball. They're not playing superstar ball. Like everybody's got to click. And if it clicks, it's not going to click often. But when it does and you sleep on it, it's going to be an issue. That's all I'm saying. This is not forget what they've done. It's a division opponent. No division games a walk in the park. It's just not. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that. We have a 2-way tie with Debo and Brock. Technic Sheik said, I changed my vote from Debo to Brock, who was going back and forth between the two anyway. So that puts Brock in the lead for votes.
Who are you voting for, Steph?
Who am I voting for? I'm voting for Debo.
As am I.
What about you?
Debo.
You're voting for Debo. And then Charlene, I think, voted already, right? Charlene, I think I saw your... Yeah, you voted Debo. So now we have another tie, and it's still a 2-way tie. Debo and Brock Purdy have 3 votes. But really quickly, we'll let someone be our tiebreaker in the comments. If you haven't voted, vote for our 49K Player of the Week. It's down to Debo and Brock Purdy.
Throw it in there.
So before we look at final voting here, who are the players you want to put on notice for this upcoming game? I have a thought.
Okay. I'm going to be very general on this, and this is not a cop out, I promise, but that was kind of like my rant around like, hey, all 49er players and coaching staff be weary of this Arizona Cardinal team that's coming to town. They're not who you think they are. They are who we thought they were. That's not this team, right? That's like I don't have a player. Like I don't think anybody last week or so far has like super disappointed me. I think there's opportunity for improvement. I don't know. Maybe you know what? I'm going to put somebody on blast. I'm going to put Mooney Ward on there.
Okay.
Like I don't think he's been as clamps as everybody thinks he's been. Like some of the throws that have gone his way, I've seen him lagging in coverage, and it's just been errant throws, right? And doing everything that the cornerbacks do when they're down 40 points and the ball's 10 yards out of bounds, and they're, oh, look at me, like. And I'm not saying he's doing that. I'm just saying I don't need him in the stat column. I just need him to be on that hip a little bit more because they're going to find out. They're going to start dragging receivers across the field, and he's not in their hip. He's a yard or two behind them. That ball's put in the right spot. Rondell Moore, that ball's put in the right spot to Rondell Moore. He will house call it. He will house call it.
Yeah, something to be mindful of. I think for me, the guy I'm putting on notice is Spencer Burford, because it's been 3 weeks and I don't think we've seen enough improvement for Burford. Last week, Thursday, 4 pressures, 3 hurries, and 1 sack allowed. That was in one game. And look, he's had some nightmare matchups so far.
Sure.
On Thursday, he was going up against Dexter Lawrence. The week before that, it was Aaron Donald. Week before that, I mean, he was seeing TJ Watt
Hayward for a little bit.
Yeah. And so I get it. All right. It hasn't been easy for him, but we need to see some improvement. All right. Over time through these first 3 weeks, haven't seen it. So I think we need to start seeing it ideally as early as this, next game against the Cardinals, right? That's an opportunity to get in the groove. The Cardinals have some guys, some pass rushers who are pretty nice as well. Zaven Collins, one of those guys I'm thinking about. And so they could be trouble. So Burford, hope he has a better game on Sunday. And Weston, someone did give us our tiebreaker. Shout out Ken Dowslin for our tie-breaking vote for Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has been named our 49K Player of the Week for his performance on Thursday night. Thank you all for voting. Appreciate it. As always, we do this every Monday. So if you guys like this, make sure you tune in to our Monday show. But I think we're ready to call it here. And we've been here. Go ahead.
I want to, on your Spencer Burford, 1 second, I promise. Here's the biggest issue with this. What do they do? You know what I mean? I think this is a failed recognition by the team in the offseason. Like, is it Feliciano? I don't know. Is it Nick Zakelj? I don't think so. And I'm a Fordham grad. I want that guy to be out on the field and I want him to be good. I agree with you, but the issue is like I don't even know if there's no backup plan for the right side of that line right now. And that's the bigger concern for me.
Well, okay. It's only been 3 weeks, so he is on notice, but I'm not making any decisions on. Yeah, I'm not making any. Because I don't make any decisions for the team in general.
You mean we don't influence Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's thoughts?
I was watching this right now.
I know.
He's taking notes. But no, I mean, I don't think the 49ers would either. They've never really been one to give up on a player that easily. So I think they're going to give Burford a little more time. But if things don't improve, I mean, I think it's worth, moving some guys around. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they have they freed up a bunch of cap space, right? They have a bunch of draft picks they can use too. Maybe we see a trade for a right guard before the trade deadline. I don't know. But in the meantime, I'm going to give Spencer Burford the benefit of the doubt that he's going to be able to turn it around at some point soon. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, it's still early, but I'm more worried about what the backup plan is.
Yeah, well, the lack of backup plan.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're pretty much good to call it, but I mean, I understand there is a Monday Night Football game right now. So for all of you guys that tuned in while this game was happening, I appreciate it. And thank you so much. Make sure you like this video if you haven't yet. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. For the audio listeners, make sure you leave a rating. That'd be very nice of you. For now, have a good rest of your night, folks. Peace.